Welcome, everyone. Really glad you could join us today. I'm Cara Corbett, the VP of Partner Growth at SUSO Digital. And thanks for joining us for another webinar. This one's called Building Discoverable E-commerce Stores for AI-Powered Search. So if you joined us on our previous webinar, Building Websites for Humans, Search Engines, and AI, you'll already have some good context as to where this fits in. And today is essentially a spin-off of that one. So we covered a lot of ground on web design and development for AI search. And e-commerce really kept coming up as an area that really deserves its own dedicated deep dive, considering there's been a lot of changes and chatter lately around agentic commerce. And the challenges are specific enough, the stakes are definitely high enough, so we really felt it warranted its own session. So that's what today is. It's an AI search-friendly web development, but with a really sharp focus on e-commerce builds. And who better to join me today to talk about this than Filip Ruprich, our head of SEO, and our VIP guest, Mack Johnson, director of e-commerce at eHouse, which is a super esteemed Shopify agency. So Mack, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself, your history, and why this is so prevalent to eHouse right now?
Yeah, hello everybody. Great to be included. Thank you, SUSO folk, for inviting me. My name is Mack Johnson. I'm the Director of Commerce here at eHouse. eHouse are a Shopify Platinum partner. We help omni-channel brands move to build and largely grow on Shopify at scale. I used to be a developer. I've been working on a Shopify platform for about 15 years now. I'm not allowed to build things anymore. I have a much more capable group of people who do it with me. So I spend a lot more time talking about building things, actually building things myself. But obviously a big focus of ours over the past 18, 24 months when it comes to especially customer acquisition has been AI and preparing brands to sail the proverbial seas of change, all while making the best use of Shopify natively as a platform. So like Cara mentioned, I'll preface this by saying I'm very much Canadian. And so if you need me to repeat anything in conventional English, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm very excited to share a bit more about how we're working with brands to embrace the changing nature of how customers are discovering and engaging with them.
Awesome. And yeah, Mack, don't worry. A lot of our partners are based in the US, based in the UK. So you will be well understood, I think. Great, cool. So let's get into it then. Here's what we're covering today. We'll start with the big picture. So what's actually changed in e-commerce, why it matters right now. And then we'll get into that technical blueprint, which is really the bulk of the session. You know, the things that directly determine whether a store shows up in AI-powered search. We'll look at it from more of like a Google traditional like product schema lens. And then Mack's really going to get into the nitty gritty from the Shopify perspective. And then we'll talk about measuring AI readiness. And then of course, as always, we close with Q&A. So feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go on that right side. A couple of you have already been doing that. We'll get to those at the end. And of course, as always, we'll be sharing the slides after the session. So let's start with why we're all here, because if you've been wondering whether the AI shopping shift is real or if it's just hype, these numbers should settle that. Adobe reported that there was a 693% year-on-year growth in retail traffic referred from generative AI platforms during the 2025 holiday season, and a 254% increase in revenue from AI traffic in that same period. And then Shopify hit us with some pretty hard-hitting numbers not too long ago. AI-referred shoppers converted around 50% higher rates than organic search on product pages. So we're dealing with a potentially much more qualified, ready-to-buy set of visitors in the AI era. So the shift isn't coming, it's definitely here, and the stores that are set up for it are already pulling ahead. So what does this actually look like? Because it looks a little different on every platform, and this is really where it gets real. So on Google's AI mode, when someone searches for a product now, they're not just getting that list of blue links anymore. They're getting AI-generated summaries with product comparisons and top lists embedded right in the answer. Now, on ChatGPT's shopping assistant, users are having full conversational research sessions where they're comparing products, they're getting recommendations, and all of this is happening without leaving the chat. And then Perplexity shopping, there are product carousels with very clearly sourced results. So this is really the new shelf. This is where product discovery is happening. And if a client's products aren't showing up here when buyers are using these tools for their research or purchases, then they're just not going to be in that consideration set. So here's something that's worth sitting with. When a user is ready to buy and they type a commercial query into Google, what they get is this. There's product grids with advanced filtering front and center, pushing those organic blue links, and even AI overviews way down the page. So that makes it clear that traditional SEO alone is not enough at the commercial stage. So what this means for web agencies and that product data layer matters as much as the page itself. You can have a perfectly optimized product page and still lose out because the structured product data feeding into Google Shopping surfaces isn't clean. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today and what we're about to dig into in the next section. So there's really three things that determine whether an e-commerce store shows up in AI-powered search. And those are AI bot access, structured data, and product feed optimization. Everything else really builds on these. So Filip, I'm going to pass it over to you to walk us through each one of these in detail. Over to you.
Thanks, Cara. So let's start with pillar one, which is AI bot access. And I want to make a point that often surprises people because most AI shopping surfaces, including ChatGPT product carousels, depend on content being publicly crawlable and accessible to AI systems, which means crawlability is the foundation of AI product discovery. If AI bots can't reach a page, they can't understand it, retrieve it, or surface its products. Now, the instinct is to go straight to robots.txt. And yes, that's the starting point, but it's not the full picture. We often find that robots.txt allows the right bots, but access is still blocked. Sometimes that's happening through Cloudflare rules, sometimes at the hosting level, and we've also found staging restrictions left in production. So the crawl path is layered: DNS, hosting provider, CDN, robots.txt, and finally, the product page. And any one of those layers can become a silent blocker. That's why bot access auditing has to go much deeper than simply checking robots.txt. Now, let's move to pillar two, structured data. And I want to be upfront here because recent research has changed how we should think about this. First of all, Google's AI optimization guide states that schema is not required to appear in AI results. And Ahrefs found that schema markup doesn't significantly boost AI citations. So why are we still talking about product schema? Because for e-commerce, it's not really about citations. It's about product visibility. Schema supports shopping experiences with product, pricing, and availability data. And those shopping surfaces are increasingly connected to AI-powered discovery. So the bottom line is simple. Don't implement product schema expecting more AI citations. Implement it because AI shopping experiences rely on those product signals. So if you're implementing product schema, there are these properties worth prioritizing. The basics, like name, image, SKU, and offers, of course, are your foundation. I would also highlight ratings and reviews because they add trust and improve how products appear in search. Then we have the properties that are often overlooked. Things like is similar to, has variant, or is accessory or spare part for. These help AI understand product relationships. What's similar, what comes together, and what works as an alternative. And finally, FAQ schema, or simply well-structured Q&A content. Not because it drives AI citations directly, but because AI can easily understand and reuse Q&A content. Now, this is where things are heading, the Universal Commerce Protocol. UCP is Google Open e-commerce standard that lets AI agents find products, apply discounts, and complete purchases. So they are not just reading product information, but it's supporting transactions as well. Things like pricing, availability, fulfillment, and returns become machine readable. And the key thing to watch is that UCP started in AI mode, but it's already expanding into mainstream Google shopping experiences. What's important for us is that UCP builds on product schema. So getting your structured data right today is really the foundation for UCP readiness. You don't need to implement UCP yet. The standard is still evolving, but stores with clean, structured e-commerce data will be best positioned as adoption grows. One thing worth making clear about UCP, it's not something that automatically applies to your store. It requires concrete steps to become eligible and to get it working. Google provides detailed documentation available via the link at the bottom of the slide. The high-level path involves getting your merchant center in order, setting up Google Pay, building the checkout integration, and syncing order updates back to Google. A key point is that access isn't open yet. You need to join a waitlist and be approved by Google. So if this is something you're thinking about for your clients, the time to apply is sooner rather than later. So the starting point for UCP, and honestly just for good e-commerce performance generally, is having Merchant Center in good standing. Clean feeds, no errors, products approved, everything up to date. That's the baseline. And for UCP specifically, there are some extra requirements on top of that. The main one at the product level is a new attribute called native commerce. You need to add it to each product you want to make eligible for agent checkout. Without it, that product will be excluded. But UCP isn't a fit for every store. Many product types, including subscriptions, digital goods, personalized items, and pre-orders, are still excluded. And consumer adoption is still early. Many shoppers still prefer to complete purchases on the website. Even ChatGPT rolled back its in-chat purchasing feature after limited adoption. So focus on strong data foundations now. Full UCP implementation can come later. And let's move to pillar 3, Google Merchant Center, because GMC is no longer just a shopping ads platform. It's becoming an AI data layer. AI systems are increasingly verifying things like stock levels, pricing, and shipping speed directly from product feeds, without the user ever visiting the website. That means feed quality matters more than ever. If stock levels are wrong, product data is incomplete, or pricing isn't up to date, AI may just stop showing your product. So the key optimization areas are fairly straightforward. Accurate inventory, competitive pricing, fast shipping, and clean product attributes. All of these help AI better understand and trust your product data. And one feature worth watching is Google's upcoming AI Performance Insights in Merchant Center. It's not fully available yet, but it will provide better visibility into product performance across AI-generated answers. I'm particularly excited about this slide because these attributes were just announced by Google, and most stores haven't implemented them yet. These are extra feed attributes that sit on top of your standard Merchant Center feed. They give AI systems more context about your products. And I think the most valuable one is question and answer, because you're effectively feeding AI the exact questions your customer may ask about your products and the answer you wanted to understand. So things like, is this waterproof? Or how long does the battery last? That's incredibly useful for conversational shopping. Other attributes help AI understand product relationships, documentations, variants, and popularity signals. They can be submitted via a supplemental feed or the Merchant API. It's a small addition that can significantly improve how AI understands your catalog.
Awesome. Thanks, Filip. Okay, so we've just covered the 3 pillars from a theory standpoint. Now I'm turning it over to Mack to show us what this looks like in the Shopify environment specifically. So Mack, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Filip. I'll be honest, I had not heard Filip's talk track before we hopped on this call, and I'm very happy with how naturally it segues into what I want to talk with you all about today. So thanks for the alley-oop, Filip. Again, my name is Mack. I work here at eHouse on the client solution side of things. And I have spent the better part of the past 2 years pretty much exclusively talking to people about AI. I'll say this up front, I'm a definite AI skeptic, and I truly believe that there is a ton of smoke around it still. But one thing I have really grown to accept and embrace is that AI is absolutely impacting how customers are discovering, engaging with, and ultimately transacting with brands today. So it would be borderline malpractice for me in the commerce space to simply ignore AI's impact on it just because I'm getting a bit sick of hearing about it and talking about it. So instead, at eHouse, we've very much embraced this and made it a principal focus of ours to give all the brands that we work with the tools that they need to pivot and keep pace with the, again, rapidly changing role AI is playing in that buying journey. And I think a good example of this was I was at NRF earlier this year, where Shopify and Google announced that UCP to give brands basically a guideline by which to engage with users and customers in the chat in a much more bespoke way. And at the same time, Shopify also announced its dedicated agentic selling channel. And all the talk for the next 60, 90 days was around the death of the conventional website, the inevitability of all future transactions happening in the chat between anonymous buying and selling agents, and just how much needed to change from a technology level for brands to keep up with this degree of transformation. And instead, and I'm not the only one who uses this analogy, but AI seems to be going in the direction of the dot-com boom of the 90s. I can't see you all, so I can't really gauge the age of people on this call, but like that is very near and dear to me. And where in that time, we really, with the dot-com boom and the internet, we really narrowed down the role that the internet plays in our everyday lives today. It's very different than it was 20 years ago. And I think we're starting to see the same thing happen with AI, where we're used to shove the internet into absolutely everything. We would install connectivity with your toaster if we could. And now we're seeing that with AI. It's clearly very good at some things. And at least for now, AI is very bad at others. And the impact that that's having on commerce may not be as earth-shatteringly fundamental as invisible robots buying and selling, negotiating on your behalf to buy your next pair of shoes, but it is going to be very significant. So we're about 6 months after that grand announcement, and I'm trying to figure out what remains universally true. And as Cara and Filip already alluded to with some very impressive figures, AI is a powerful product discovery tool, and that is not changing. To add some more stats to the conversation, I read that 60% of Google searches today are ending without a click. And in Google's AI model, I think that number is over 90%. And what that's indicative of is that the channel that a lot of brands are budgeting for is very much structurally declining, while AI itself becomes search. And what search is based on entirely different queries than it has been over the past 15 years. So our challenge is to make sure, how are we still a part of that discussion? And the very short, seriously unsexy answer is data. Organized data schemas that mitigate the need for AI to infer recommendations and do the stuff that AI hates, which is guesswork, and follow a repeatable and clear product taxonomy. So I want to talk about some easy tools available to both Shopify and non-Shopify brands alike to help organize and validate their product data, and identify some very common gaps. So getting into what this actually looks like inside of Shopify, Filip just walked you through basically the 3 pillars from a theory standpoint. What I want to do is make things a bit more concrete, because I think the gap between, we've got product data and our product data is actually working for us in AI and we know it, is where most brands are sitting right now, and they don't know it. So starting with the agentic side, I wanted to open with something I think is relevant whether you're already on Shopify or not on Shopify, and that's that Shopify now offers what they're calling an agentic plan. So it's exactly what it sounds like. You don't need a full Shopify storefront and your entire business migrated over to participate in it. As long as your products are in the catalog and you meet its eligibility requirements, you can be listed and recommended across AI channels and also in the Shop app without running your entire commerce operation on Shopify. And that's very attractive to a lot of brands. So if you're on other platforms, you've been watching the agentic conversation from the sidelines, is very much worth paying attention to. And the barrier to entry is lower than it's ever been. So you can participate in this AI-driven product discovery motion without requiring a full replatforming of your business. And if you're a brand that's already on Shopify, you're probably closer to a strong state than you'd probably think. I believe as of May 1st this year, agentic sales channels are automatically enabled on all live Shopify stores. So you don't have to set anything up. Shopify is basically treating this like a fourth sales channel along with its traditional online store, retail POS, and B2B channels. And what is pictured here is the agentic dashboard, and that gives you a view into how your products are performing across ChatGPT and Copilot as it's AI-driven in channels. You can see sessions, you can see revenue attributed to those channels, and perhaps most interestingly, you can run test queries to see how your products actually appear in an AI chat search. So it'll even give you a score and quantify it, and proactively highlight deficiencies in how your data appears relative to top 10 results in Shopify's global catalog. And not to get too far ahead of myself, but to expand a bit on the latter, because I'm going to mention it a bunch. Shopify has a catalog query developer tool where you can test specific prompts and see where you rank relative to the global Shopify catalog. So all products listed as a part of the Shopify catalog. So you can effectively type in a query the same way a shopper would, and Shopify will tell you whether your products rank in the top 10 for that specific prompt, and if not, exactly why they don't. So if I were running an apparel brand and selling, the example here is 5 panel hats, I could query the global catalog for prompts such as 5 panel hats under $25 and see the actual JSON output of how my products show up. If they appear, and it will also tell me if they appeared in the top 10 products in Shopify's global catalog under that search term or that query term, and also output for the products that did appear in that top 10. Also natively, you can run completeness checks that are reasonably straightforward. So when you look at the 4 pieces that are really the baseline for showing up, those are description length, image count, review volume, and an average rating, and whether your store policies are in place. And when it comes to review volume and rating, those are very good examples of organic, trust-based signals that AI looks for in making sure you're prioritized as a part of those results. So what we find at eHouse when we run these audits is that in most stores, they're mostly passing on having descriptions and having policies, and really falling short on images and reviews. And give you an example, a single product image and a handful of reviews or no reviews at all are going to consistently knock products out of the top 10, even when everything else is relatively solid. So these are all obviously very fixable problems, and the agentic dashboard will tell you exactly which products need attention. And the only other thing you need to know about this dashboard is that it connects directly back to what we're about to cover on metadata. So you can see in real time what data Shopify is sending to the catalog for each product, what fields are populated, what's missing, and whatever AI is inferring, which to me is a very bad word. So if your data is thin, for lack of a better term, the inference is going to be very narrow and thin too. But the agentic dashboard in Shopify is where you can see the downstream effects of those gaps against like real actual queries. And because we're all terrible people who are very used to using AI in every sense of our lives, you'll find the best and most ironic part of this is when it comes time to think up a whole set of queries relative to your business to test, you'll find yourself turning to AI. But alas, this is the world that we live in today. So all that being said, why does this matter before agentic commerce in a literal sense? And by that, I mean the transaction moving and the checkout moving into the chat fully arrive. Like, why does it matter today? And because, and Filip already mentioned this, I think the window to get ahead of it is right now. The brands that are going to win in AI referred traffic are the ones whose product data is already clean, already structured, and complete when that traffic volume and the context of the agentic conversation shifts. The numbers that Cara opened with, 700% growth in AI referred retail traffic, 50% higher conversion rate from visitors, like that's something that's already very much happening. That's not a projection for the future. So I wanted to go just one level deeper on that and look at actually what's happening inside the Shopify catalog itself. Are you able to move my slide? I
did.
Okay, on fire. I want to talk more about what Shopify Catalog actually is, because that's a foundation I think that everything really sits on. Shopify Catalog is essentially a very standardized, machine-readable index of every eligible product across Shopify's merchant base. So it's got everything. It's what AI performs queries on when they're surfacing product recommendations in real time. Things like pricing, availability, product options and variants, product relationships, all of that gets pulled directly from the Shopify catalog. So if your data is in there and it's accurate, AI platforms can find you, and they can recommend you. And if it's not, or if it's messy, or if it's disorganized, you're either going to be invisible and not a part of the conversation, or you're going to be misrepresented as a part of the conversation, which can at times be even worse. So the important thing to understand is that the Shopify catalog isn't an entirely separate system you have to go and build yourself. If you're on Shopify, like I mentioned before, your products are already automatically included. But for many, when it comes to actual differentiation, the question isn't whether you're actually in the catalog, but rather is what's in there actually working. And Shopify does give you a bit of a head start here if you're running a native Shopify store. A lot of the foundational product schema gets generated automatically. So your product title, description, your category feed directly into that catalog representation. But the default mapping is fine. It's just not great. So as an example, by default, Shopify takes your standard product title, your standard product description fields, product category, and it bundles all that up into the catalog representation of your product. And that's what an AI agent is going to see. But the problem that most product descriptions were is that most product descriptions were previously written for a human browsing a traditional PDP. So they weren't written to answer the more conversational queries that Filip referenced before that AI platforms are now fielding. So things like, I'm a fashionista, so blue jeans under $100 that have free shipping and I'll receive within 2 days, or a cosmetic bag as a gift for a work acquaintance. I mean, those obviously aren't the traditional keyword searches we've become accustomed to, because they're intent-driven questions. And if your product data doesn't contain the right signals, you're not going to show up in a response to any of those queries. And that's why appropriate data mapping has become so important. And when your data is incomplete, Shopify doesn't just leave the fields blank. It attempts to infer using AI. So it's going to pull from whatever product data you provided, and it's going to make its best guess at things like, what is your unique selling point? What are the top features, right down to trying to understand what specific tech specs might look like, which is especially precarious for brands that buy and trade on differentiating in that space. And while that sounds helpful, I think in some cases it is. Inferred data is a guess. It's based on what Shopify can extract from an existing product title or an existing short product description. And if those inputs are vague, or if they're generic, or just optimized for a completely different purpose, the inference is going to be equally as vague and generic. And the difference between when a product shows up for a cosmetic bag as a gift and one that doesn't, isn't the product itself. It's whether the catalog entry contains the word gift anywhere, or signals more specific or more colorful, like perfect for gifting or gifts under $50. If that language isn't in your data, it's not being inferred, and you don't show up for that query. So thoughtfully mapped data puts you more in control of that, instead of very honestly leaving it to chance with inferred data from AI. So coming back to that catalog query tool I mentioned earlier, this lets you run real search queries against your individual store's catalog to see exactly what AI is reading back. And what comes back often for a brand starting out is that AI inferred version of your catalog entries. If those fields look vague or off to you when you're reviewing them, that's your signal that the underlying product data needs work. And it's the clearest diagnostic tool we have for understanding what I'm talking about, is the gap between what a merchant thinks their catalog says and what an AI agent is actually seeing. So The last thing I wanted to talk through was some of the common pitfalls we see here at eHouse running audits for our brands, because these are things that come up consistently. And one of them is just empty category meta fields. So Shopify will generate suggested meta field values automatically when you assign a product to a, say, a category taxonomy. So color, materials, style, other product specific attributes relevant to that specific category. And those suggestions just sit there until someone accepts them. And what we see most often is that taxonomy has been assigned, but the meta fields are all still empty, and which is very much a missed opportunity, because those fields are exactly what help AI to understand the specific context around a product. Or the analogy I always use is the difference between simply what is the name of this product and what is this product. I've also talked a fair bit already about mismatched, vague product descriptions. For example, the product's description field in an AI sense is intended to be like a very short, clear blurb about the product itself. Most stores are mapping this to their full product description page description by default, which is often very long, or maybe more focused on persuasion and color and branded messaging rather than clarity. So if you have a short description meta field available, alternatively, that's probably a better mapping. And if you don't, it's worth creating one specifically for catalog purposes. For larger marketplace style sites, we also see inconsistent or non-standard product titles, which may seem very table stakes, but the catalog requires on titles to understand what a product is and how it relates to other products in the catalog. So if your titles follow an internal naming convention that wouldn't make intuitive sense to an AI, that's presumably parsing thousands of products, that creates more thinking and guessing on the AI side. And what we've seen at eHouse is just very normalized descriptive titles perform a lot better. And perhaps most interestingly on the Shopify platform, if changing titles would cause conflicts or break things more downstream, you can always map, again, the catalog title to a separate distinct meta field for this specific purpose and keep your operational or your live titles on your website untouched. Another one is that, and this is a bit more Shopify specific, is fragmented product variant structures. So if your product have variants, the way that the variants are grouped together matters a lot. So stores with what I would call like non-standard variant setups, and those can be things like custom grouping logic, unusual option labels, and products that should realistically be combined listings but aren't. So like if you have individual products for every color available of that same product, you're going to see inconsistent catalog behavior, and standard product and variant structures very much have an advantage here because Shopify's indexing is optimized to understand them in that very consistent state. And the last one might be obvious, but it's still very rampant, and that's missing keywords in your data. AI catalog queries are very semantic and conversational, like we've already talked about. If a shopper searches for gift for a crafter, and your products don't contain any language around gifting, you aren't going to show up regardless of how great your product actually is. And those keywords can live in your description, in a grouping meta field, in tags, and they don't necessarily need crammed into titles, but they do need to be somewhere in the data that the catalog is reading. What Shopify gives you in its native data mapping tool is the ability to override defaults and point any of these fields at a meta field instead. And that negates the need to modify anything on the front end of your store or trivialize any content that has been more, I'd say, traditionally indexed for SEO. You're just giving the catalog a much cleaner, more intentional signal specifically for AI. And one of the stats that I want to mention relative to product discovery is that, and how tailoring your catalog specifically to agentic search is that the overlap the overlap between top 10 Google rankings and AI citations collapsed. I think it went from 75% in mid 2025 to, I think, 17% by early 2026, which means high organic rankings on Google no longer have anything or have less and less of a relationship with AI visibility. These are different lists entirely. So all that to say, as I mentioned from the onset, this type of optimization, data mapping is still new to a lot of brands, but the point is it isn't hard at all to get started as a high level. I think Shopify has already done a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and all you have to do is actually configure it. And the exciting part is that still today, many stores, many brands haven't. And you can still very much be a first mover here. So anyway, that's what I want to share with you all today. I'll shoot it back to you, Cara.
I actually have a question. I just want to drill in on the inference piece because I thought that was really interesting. And something that we hear a lot about in AI search is sort of this hallucination bit, especially on like other platforms where people are asking about things. Is it the same case within Shopify where it's like something about your product? I don't know, if somebody asks a specific question about your product, that data is not in there. Is it still a case of hallucination where it's going to go out to the web and look at what other people are talking about? Like, will it make up things about your brand if the product specs are not there?
Well, I think there's two kind of silos of what I'm thinking about. One is how Shopify is massaging your catalog in advance of you being a part of that AI conversation. That is where it creates inferences around what your description actually is, what your product taxonomy actually is, and that is going to have an adverse impact on what you described, Cara, as appearing and being a part of that conversation. I think that there's a chance that hallucinations happen in both environments and they are exacerbated by one and another. And that's why having a absolutely high degree of specificity in your product data in Shopify catalog as it's ingested by AI becomes so much more important, because it is very much like a cascading effect based on what we've seen. I told you before, I spoke about this at an event a couple weeks ago, and an attendee asked me like a really good question around if how AI is understanding data is changing every 3 to 4 months, it feels like, and the standard is transitioning so rapidly. What behooves me to try and keep up with that and reinvent how we organize our data every 3 months to match that. And for me, you're never going to be at a position where you say, oh, we're behind the 8 ball on product discoverability on AI, because we've always prioritized clean and clear and concise data. This is basic housekeeping for a brand. It's always been a huge asset. And the more specific information you can tie back to your product, your brand, your product taxonomy, the clearer those results are going to be, and the more AI is going to like you, because it doesn't have to do all that guesswork.
Totally agree. Awesome. Thanks, Mack. Filip, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mack. So before we move into measurement, I also want to mention one area that's often overlooked: images. And this is something that Mack also mentioned. Thank you for that as well. Because for e-commerce, visual search is an important discovery channel. Tools like Google Lens and AI-powered shopping results rely heavily on image signals. And the difference between a purely optimized image and a well-optimized one can be significant. And the basics are, of course, straightforward. Use descriptive alternative text, use high-quality, unique images rather than stock photos, include multiple angles where possible, and make sure your image property is included in product schema. Also, file names matter as well. EMG 4832 doesn't tell AI anything. A descriptive file name does. So individually, these are small changes, but together they are often the fastest AI wins, and we find in e-commerce audits these things as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Filip. So that's the technical blueprint covered. Filip and Mack have given you guys a lot to work with there. But now we're going to shift into that third part of today's session, which is about measurement. Because once you've built for AI search, the obvious next question is, okay, well, how do we know if it's actually working? So we're going to keep this practical. 3 concrete steps that you can take right now, and then plus a look at what's coming that will hopefully make measurement a lot easier on the AI side of things. So Filip.
So let's start with step 1. auditing bot access. And I want to come back to something we discussed earlier. This is about much more than robots.txt. Yes, of course, that's the first thing to check, but also make sure that major AI crawlers are allowed. But then you need to take a look on the layers behind it. So Cloudflare and CDN rules or hosting level restrictions. Any one of these can silently block access, even when robots.txt look perfectly fine. And we see that quite often. A useful starting point is SUSO's AI Search Visibility Checker. It's free. It shows how visible a brand is in AI-generated answers, and it can highlight accessibility issues before you dive into a deeper technical audit. Think of it as a quick health check before the full investigation. The shopping reports in Search Console act as a health check for your product structure data. They highlight errors, warnings, and opportunities to improve your product schema and merchant listings. This isn't AI-specific reporting, but keeping it clean and error-free improves the chances of your structured data being used in both Google search and AI experience. Filtering performance by search appearance in Search Console shows click and impressions for different rich result types. For e-commerce, focus on product snippets, merchant listings, and review snippets. AI traffic can't be separated from regular search here, but the data is still useful because higher CTRs often indicate the structured data is working well, while page and query insights help optimize titles, descriptions, and attributes. Google is testing a generative AI performance report in Search Console, so keep an eye on future updates as well. And one broader point on measurement, right now measuring AI visibility is really difficult. For Google, AI traffic is buried in general performance data. And for other tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Claude, you can track referral traffic in Google Analytics, but measuring impressions and visibility is very, very difficult. You still can monitor selected prompts manually or with dedicated tools, but AI responses vary by user, location, and context. So that means visibility tracking is still far from perfect. And in Merchant Center, we have the product analytics report. One thing to note, ads and organic are mixed together by default, but you can drill down to organic specifically, which is what we want here. You can see clicks, impressions, CTR, purchases, and purchase rate individually for specific products and also by brand. Popular now and trending up products are the ones to keep in stock and error-free. High impressions with low CTR usually means the image, title, or price needs work. Trending down is worth catching early as well. Once again, this data is not AI only yet, but it does include data for Google's AI overview and AI mode. So this report should get significantly more useful once Google finishes rolling out the AI performance reports.
So yeah, speaking of the AI performance report in Merchant Center, this is going to give merchants direct visibility into how products perform across Google's AI surfaces like AI overviews, AI mode in search, and of course the Gemini app. So it's going to report on things like share of voice. So where is your brand's visibility compared to similar brands on these surfaces? Shopping funnel performance, which unlocks key data across critical stages like discovery, evaluation, and purchase. We have product term insights, which shows you which search terms are actually triggering your products in AI. So probably pretty similar to that one in Shopify. Product attribution insights, which will help you identify which attributes are appearing most often, like sizes, colors, styles, or variants. And a very helpful completeness score to help you identify which of your products are missing these crucial structured details so you can update them. So it seems like they're taking a lot of notes from Shopify. This isn't fully live yet, but it's being rolled out over the coming months. And as we said, Shopify has its own agentic readiness assessment now, so it's worth running any Shopify client through it to see where they stand. Okay, so one last thing before we move over to questions. If today's session was useful, you want to keep this kind of access and education going, that's entirely what SUSO's free partner club is for. So it's essentially a free resource for agencies and consultants in the space where we give you access to a bunch of awesome things like private workshops and training. You get access to our dedicated SEO and GEO team for questions. Maybe you're working on something, you need some support. You have 24/7 access to our team. And then we also do very bespoke analyses and reports for your clients so that you can start sales conversations. So if you're building or maintaining e-commerce sites and you want a specialist partner for SEO or GEO or just some help in that AI search world, this is a super easy and free way to get started. So join today. I'd love to work with you. Now, before we wrap up, a few things worth bookmarking that we did mention today. So Filip mentioned SUSO's AI Search Visibility Checker, which is also a free tool that's a quick way for you to get an initial read on how visible your clients are in AI-generated answers, and also outline some of those potential technical blockers. So this is a self-serve tool. You get a response in about 3 to 5 minutes. We look at over 100 different factors across the web to get that pointers. It's on our website. You can also scan the QR code there. Second, Mack, eHouse does an AI readiness audit. Do you want to say a quick word about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, everything I've walked you through today is exactly what we look at when we run AI readiness audit for a brand. It's something eHouse is built specifically for this moment in time. So it's very much a baseline assessment of how well your store is set up to be found, understood, and recommended by AI. What you get out of it is two things: an AI visibility scorecard using a combination of tooling that we've built internally here to get more specific, and a variety of other sources, which shows where your catalog stands across the signals I think we've been talking about today, and a epically named hallucination report, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a proof of how AI platforms are currently misrepresenting your key products based on the data you have in place right now. So the second one tends to get some people's attention because it's the one thing. I think it's one thing to know your product data could be better. It's another to see in practice an AI agent confidently describing your product incorrectly to a shopper who's ready to buy. So if that's something you wanted to look at for your store, you can request an audit through the QR code here.
Awesome. And then, yeah, finally, the third one, SUSO's Partner Club. I already chatted about that, but that's also free to join. We'll also send this recording and the presentation slides, so you guys will always have access to that. But we've got about 12 minutes for questions. Raf, would be silly not to join the SUSO partner. Thanks, Raf. Raf is my colleague. Thanks, Raf. Love the plug. Any questions coming in? I know we're on LinkedIn Live as well, so I don't know if there's any there, but we've got some time. We've got an expert on the call from Shopify, not from Shopify, but an expert on Shopify. Give everyone a couple minutes. If a customer completes a purchase inside AI mode without ever landing on the site, what happens to that customer relationship? Do you still get their data?
Yeah, so I can take it from here. So it's a really good question, Jamie, because the good information is that, yes, we will receive portion of the data, and that's good information because we at least will have data about our client, about the fulfillment, the shipping address, and everything that we need to have to make this order ready. But at the same time, we won't have any information regarding any analytics information from the source, like how much time did the client spend on ChatGPT or AI mode or anything else. We won't be able to see any pixels, any other analytics data like we usually want to have. So that's kind of a limitation. But of course, the basic data will be there for us as well.
Mack, I don't know if you have anything to add from, because I know Shopify specifically has like partnerships with some of these LLMs, and I don't know, as part way of that, do they give deeper access?
Well, it's still, you're like Filip mentioned, you're getting an order, you're getting the basic information that would come along with an order, customer information. You need to be able to fulfill that order. That would basically be an information that would come along as a part of an order payload itself, where I think the UCP was introduced and where and we're talking about buying directly in the chat, which is just something that's very much like a developing concept and doesn't really benefit. It's not an apples to apples type transaction, considering I think some types of products lend themselves exceptionally to transacting within the chat. Some other products are way too complex and require way too much personalization for us with our current technology to be able to facilitate a transaction like that. And Filip highlighted a couple of pieces of this that are potentially lost in the mix as a part of that, again, that purchase happening directly in chat, where subscription-based engagements become a lot more challenging. Product customization becomes a lot more challenging. Loyalty programs and redeeming, upsides from loyalty programs or benefits from those become a lot harder. And that's something that brands will have to work with technology to define if that's going to become more prevalent. But all that being said, I think there are also verticals that in the future are going to really benefit from more of this transaction happening in the chat. One of the ones I'm very excited about is like grocery and buying food online. I don't know if anyone here meal plans. When I talk about things that like AI is really good at and things that AI is not so great at, meal planning it's actually quite good at. And if I were to say, okay, where can I find all the ingredients for this week's worth of meals? This is what I have in my fridge. That becomes like a very smooth style of transaction that I think would be beneficial to have in the chat. But I think that is like a second stage of AI-driven commerce, which is taking a bit longer to evolve. And what most of the research has indicated to date is that people are still very comfortable transacting on the website through conventional checkout and getting all of that functionality that they're used to having on the website itself as a part of that overall transaction.
Nice. Thank you. Estelle says, for Filip, for a store with thousands of SKUs, where do you start with feed optimization?
Yeah, it would be great to have like a proper strategy here. So definitely I wouldn't tackle all of the SKUs at once. I would start with maybe 20% that generate most of the revenue, or at least clicks right now. And even from the resources from the slide that we had today, I would go and check the attributes one by one, like starting from basics, like product titles, description, the intent keywords that Mack also mentioned. It's very important. Focus also on image quality and all these rules regarding images. And let's have a proper benchmark after a while. If it works, let's implement exactly the same pattern for the rest of the inventory, which of course will be time consuming. With help of AI, it should be easier and easier with next iterations as well.
Can I also mention that I know the question was for Filip, but I can't help myself.
Please.
Another element in larger marketplace style catalogs, I think is especially important, is product taxonomy, and it can't be understated. Like this is effectively like the filing system for how your products live with each other, and helps AI get a lot more specific in terms of locating products that fit a particular conversation. And if you have your taxonomy is not consistent with your vertical, or even Shopify is a very clearly defined product taxonomy that's very broad. If that's not in place, then you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. It's the equivalent of walking into a store and there just being heaps of products all over the place, and it's up to AI to find the specific one versus aisle 1 through 20 and directing them specifically to where they should go. So sorry, you didn't ask me that.
Yeah, that's okay. More insights, the better. Anastasia says, I was wondering whether e-commerce stores should invest in blog content.
Oh God, yes. It's more important than ever. Like it cannot be understated how this is not going away. And especially because of that semantic nature of search. Like people are, if we're talking about product discovery, it's just as much brand discovery a lot of the time. And to give you like just a very basic example, I work with a number of jewelry brands, and those jewelry brands have people like buying engagement rings for the very first time. And for somebody who doesn't even know where to start, if you're asking what is a shank, Like, what part of a ring is a shank? You want to have the most detailed description of what that is, and you want people engaging with that, because that's going to inherently build trust with your brand as an information provider. And the more detailed you can be in that, and the more closely it's tied back to your products, the same way with conventional SEO, the more confident AI is going to be in referring you to people who are actually looking for rings or looking to make a purchase. So Filip might disagree with me, but like I could not understate it enough.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I agree that the blog expansion is really like the foundation, and I agree that we should continue developing this. I would avoid expanding like really basic topics like back in 2020 or even earlier, like, for example, what is dishwasher or any topics like this. But definitely, I would focus on really great experience content, like, product comparisons, expert reviews, use cases, industry expertise, or original research. Yes, that's really added value for the websites, for e-commerces as well. So yes, definitely we should expand blog even more. I agree.
Awesome. And then we got one from Claudia. Search Console and Merchant Center don't tell you if you're showing up in ChatGPT or Perplexity. Well, Merchant Center will, hopefully soon. I mean, actually, no, I guess that would be Google only. How can we measure that right now?
Yeah, I think that Google will focus only on Google products, of course. But when it comes to the ChatGPT and Perplexity, we have like two possibilities, like two main possibilities. First of all, you can track specific prompts on specific LLMs and your visibility across these prompts, a number of mentions, number of citations, and compared to your competitors. So that's the one thing. And the second thing is that you can track also the AI referral traffic from in Google Analytics from different LLMs. Even on our SUSO Digital blog, there's like specific article like how to configure this kind of report. It's really easy, 5 minutes. You need to do it once, and then you can have it for next week, next month to monitor like the hopefully increase of more and more people from AI search.
Mack, anything to add on that? Nope.
No, Filip nailed it. All I would be doing would be adding anecdotes and color that would detract from Filip's clear messaging. So got it.
No. Okay, we got last question from Richard. Have you got a go-to example of a site that we can show as a leading light? So Mack, maybe you have, maybe not necessarily one that you work on, or maybe like a really good example of a brand absolutely killing it in Shopify, got all of their product specs like up to date. I don't know if you have one on the top of your head.
I don't. I'll be frank. I think it's something that not to answer your question with another question, but that is the big benefit of Shopify's global catalog, like I was mentioning before. If you have a product, if you're a Shopify merchant, you have a product that is listed for sale online, and there are millions and millions and millions of them, that information relative to queries is available to anyone. If you have a specific store ID, so usually you have your own store ID and you want to check your own work, you can check specific shops more consistently. You can see what other people or competitors are doing in the space, and the quality of their data is something very hard to like see below the water. But like Cara referenced earlier, Shopify has a AI readiness check that you can run any site through, and it will score any Shopify site on the quality and indexability. Is that an AI term? I feel like I'm using old SEO terms, but the quality of their data and their taxonomy publicly available to you. I got to find that link, but that is like a dedicated URL that you can reference, and you can just, if you want to put in gymshark.com, you can put in gymshark.com to see how everything looks. That might be more helpful to you than just like general North Star brands that are doing it well, because you can check to see how well, relatively speaking, your competitors are.
Love that. And now I'm thinking about it, indexability probably isn't the best, but maybe extractability would be a better one.
I knew it was bad as soon as I said it. So.
hey, a lot of the times some of these LLMs are actually going to Google's index. So I think the index still matters sometimes, but maybe less so in this agentic commerce era. I don't know. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. We are right on the dot. We did great with our time today. Thank you so much, Mack and Filip, for joining us. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. We still got 16 of you straggling along. Love that. And yeah, we'll be in touch soon on our next webinar. It's going to be a good one. We've got the esteemed Mike King from iPullRank is joining, and that's going to be very juicy, very polarizing. I'm really excited about it, but stay tuned, and hopefully we see some of you joining the Partner Club, and we'll be in touch very soon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.